We welcome you to the Donovan Live Postgame Show here on WKYC's Facebook Live as we get this draft week underway. I'm Davey Natale along with Jimmy Donovan. We will get to the NFL draft in a second. I don't want to shortchange the Cavs though for a second, Jimmy, because for a few moments there last night, I felt like I was watching the Cavs season flash before my eyes, because it kind of felt like they were on the brink of being at down 3-1. And I know they're coming back, and 2 of the final 3 games would have been here, but that was important to get that win last night.
Oh, dramatically so. Victor Oladipo, 5 for 20 in the game. They missed, I think, once they had that lead late in the game with about 4:12, 4:20
yeah,
left.
that 93-91, they had
missed,
that lead.
I think, like almost 6 of their last 8 shots.
Yeah.
But they missed, it seemed as though they missed 6 in a row. And not that the Cavs were piping hot themselves, but Kyle Korver hit a couple of big, shots, and that put them up over the top, and it was just enough to get them up over the top. I think when you're playing a team like the Cavs, or let me just be more specific, when you're playing a guy like LeBron James, I think you get one shot.
Yes.
And I think they had their shot.
Yep.
And I think the Cavs will weather this storm.
I do too.
This is only the first storm, and I think there are more storms out on the horizon. And I think they're going to weather it at some point, either in 6 or 7, and they win the series.
I think, I've gone back to this point a couple of times because I really do think it's important when you think about the Cavs as an offensive team and what they have to do, what the pathway to success is. This is a different Cavs team going into the playoffs than what we've seen over the last 3 years when you had LeBron, Kyrie, Kevin Love, and everybody else. It's a little different now. They didn't quite need 40-plus points from LeBron last night to win. He scored 32. But if you don't get 30, if you don't get like 35-plus points, you better have at least 4, I say 5 Cavs in double figures to win. They came very close to that. They had 4 in double figures in addition to LeBron last night, or LeBron and 3 others. Korver, Clarkson, and J.R. Smith were all in double figures. And then, you had a couple of guys with like 6 points or 8 points or whatever. But I guess the point being, if it's either got to be LeBron carrying the complete load, the whole baggage, everything on his shoulder, or you better have everybody that you're in your rotation, making tangible contributions. Otherwise, this isn't going to work because you don't have the big 3 anymore.
Yeah. Well, I think you're being kind. I mean, it is a different team, and in my terms, it's not as good a team.
No.
As that team was. And I think that, I think we all have to come to that realization. Yeah. It's playing right out in front of your eyes. Yeah. They're simply not as good as they used to be. Now, they have the best player on the planet, and he can do magical things, and he can do wondrous things. And again, he pulled a rabbit out of his hat last night. But Friday night, he didn't. And he couldn't, and they went cold, and they didn't have that support system around him, and he didn't hit the 30-point mark in that game, and they blew 16, 17-point leads, in the ball game. That's still the thing that is scary about their trek in the playoffs is that they get these leads and they melt away.
They can't hold them. Yeah.
They can't hold them, and they didn't hold it again last night until they rallied and came back and won. Now, against a better team, and there are better teams out there than Indiana, that will be a problem. It will be a twofold problem. Number 1, getting out to that big lead, and number 2, once again, being able to hold on to it. And it seems as though, like anything else, I mean, they have a guy that gets a little bit worn down, and he is he's a physical phenomenon, is LeBron James. But I compare this to the year that Love and Irving got hurt.
Yeah.
But remember, Irving got hurt in the finals,
right.
And they kind of weathered the storm through Love. But they still had a tricky series against Chicago that year.
Yeah, which feels a lot like this series.
This one is like that. So I just think that I think they're going to get through this one.
Yeah,
I really do. But it will be, if it goes deep and it's at least going to go 6. Yeah. That will start to wear on them too. Because remember a couple of years ago, I mean, they skipped through the East. Only kind of coughing up 2 games to Toronto. And that was because I think they got bored.
Yeah,
and then they went into the finals.
Yeah, LeBron had to play 46 minutes last night, and that's a problem. I mean, it just is. But Tyronn Lue can't take him out. I mean, in the second half, You know, you'd like to get to a point where you feel like, okay, we can take him out for, 2 minutes at the end of the third quarter, maybe a minute to start the fourth quarter, which is like 10 minutes of real-time rest and like 3 or 4 minutes of game rest. They can't do that. Not when they're blowing leads like that. They can't do that. Yeah. And LeBron talked about that, trying to reserve pockets of energy, which I think he kind of reserved it in the third quarter and then had it in the fourth quarter. Yeah. But it's not easy.
No, it isn't. And it was a problem when they got to Golden State really last year, and 2 years ago, 2 years before that when they lost to them in the finals. When they could get him out, sometimes it was only a minute. Remember, there were times where we'd have to get him right back in at the start of the fourth quarter because, teams just attacked them when he wasn't on the floor. Kevin Love was a disappointment last night, just didn't show up. He's got to show up every night.
He's got to, and I know, and it's difficult for me. I'm watching this, and it's like, well, is it a matchup issue? Is Indiana, is their inside guys a matchup problem? Is he hurt? Is the hand really bothering him? I'm not sure, because he's still getting rebounds. He's still positioning himself to get rebounds, but the scoring, the productivity is not there. And if he's 2 for 10 from the field. Yeah.
Well, we'll see what happens. Obviously the odd number games are big games in series. Tomorrow's 5, and they obviously can't slip up. They have to cash in on what they were able to do though last night and take these guys out. I don't think you can let these guys hang around because they can't. That's their whole makeup is they come back at you. They really have kind of a no-name team that's really has good chemistry, great coach, and they have a way of doing it. Right. I mean, they play defensively. They get on the boards. They do a lot of good things. I don't think they have pure shooters. Right. That I think that they really needed last night in the late going. And you would have to expect that a great player like Victor Oladipo is going to come back and give a game like he had in Game 1. Where he had the 32 points. But until he does that, I think the Cavs have a great shot to get them out of here.
Yeah. All right, to the NFL draft. This time Thursday, so in 72 hours, we'll be just about starting the draft. Jimmy will be in Berea. I'll be anchoring our coverage here on Facebook Live and WKYC.com, so it's just about here. Do you think at this point in his mind, John Dorsey knows who's going to take number 1? Forget 4 for a second. But do you think he hasn't written it down, but in his mind he's like, okay, I think I've got the guy?
I do. And I think that probably came either Thursday evening or Friday. They had very, very detailed meetings between the separate staffs. And by separate staffs, I mean Thursday they met with all the offensive people and the coaching staff with the scouts and everything everybody that's involved in the draft, with John Dorsey obviously running the show. And they went over what they wanted and who they wanted offensively. So if they came up with a name there, that's going to put you at the top of the list and at the top of the draft where I think they're going to be in the way of selecting a quarterback. Then the next day, they went defense, so that would be Friday, and they went for an extended period of time. I think each one of these meetings went for 4, 5 hours, 6 hours to go over what the plan was. Defensively, then what are they going to do? They weigh the offense versus the defense, and I think where they are and where they are in the whole franchise, I think they realize it's a quarterback at number 1. I do think he knows who he's going to take.
Yeah. Now, if you go around and everybody's got either a mock draft today or will have one, or everybody's hearing from their sources, the friend of Dorsey has always been my favorite that Peter King had, Dan Patrick's buddy who's a scout or whatever. It's all over the opinions all over the place. King, he heard from his person in the know that Allen is out as far as the Browns are concerned. They've ruled Josh Allen out. King believes it's going to be Sam Darnold. I know you believe that as well. Patrick, though, on the flip side, these guys are both NBC colleagues, so I kind of thought this was funny. Dan Patrick's hearing it's either going to be Josh Allen or Baker Mayfield. So, I mean, it's kind of funny. Everything is all over the place nationally.
Yeah, it is. And, a lot of people are, wondering, would they entertain getting out of the pick? Would they fool everybody and take a non-quarterback at number 1 and then just take a quarterback at number 4 if they like pretty much the 4 quarterbacks, if they like them kind of all the same? But I don't see them doing that. I think that I think this is a franchise-changing draft.
Yes.
And I think it has to be. Yeah. I mean, it's where they are. It's why we've toiled the last 2 years and accumulated picks and where those picks have landed them. And the assets that they have, you have the capabilities now of solving short-term problems and long-term problems. Quarterback of the future, short-term problems, defensively, offensively, getting more talented players on the field. You are right there. And you don't have to go past round 2 to get there.
Right.
I mean, and remember now, he's loaded in rounds 1 and 2. He has given away some picks. Well, they don't have a pick in 3.
They don't have a third, yeah, right.
And they've been stripped of a pick in 4 and 5 from other deals that they have made. So you can tell where the center of the storm is, and it's in rounds 1 and 2 with those 5 picks. I think he stays. Maybe the 4 pick is flexible, but I think he stays at 1, and I do believe he knows where they are. I think that, nationally, I think everybody has an opinion. The 4 quarterbacks are very, very different, in style of play. I mean, and also in temperament and in personality.
Now, nobody is saying Rosen for the Browns. That's the UCLA quarterback, Josh Rosen. I mean, I haven't seen any mock or anybody associated with the Browns, anybody on the inside that thinks this guy is going to be a Cleveland Brown or has the potential to be a Cleveland Brown. Not to rule it out, because, I mean, it could be, I guess, but I don't think if it's going to be a quarterback at 1, and we all think it's going to be, there's been nothing about Rosen for the Browns.
Yeah, a lot of people feel Rosen fits more with the Jets, possibly at 3. Rosen's kind of in the same category as Mayfield. You take a look at Josh Rosen, and we'll talk about him. Let's talk about him. I think that the Browns were delighted with him when they met with him. He's a really intelligent kid. He's very opinionated. Yes, he comes from a family of wealth. He's lived a very nice life. You can't not pick him because of that. I think when you take a look at him, Dino, as technically sound as any of them.
That's what everybody says.
As anybody.
Footwork off the charts, arm strength, what you want.
Where he is in the pocket. Now, he likes the pocket. He does not have a lot of escapability. He's a little bit on the frail side. He's been hit a lot, and it's not all the offensive line's problems. Some people think that he hasn't got escapability. He can't get out when it's time to hit the parachute and get out of there.
And we saw that with Kaiser. So it's just that alarm in your head that says, all right, either get rid of the football or get out of the pocket, one or the other.
Now, there's been a tremendous PR surge from out at UCLA, to kind of rehab the image that a lot of people had of him, which was, aloof, a challenge to coach, kind of likes doing things his own way. And so there was that. But technically, nobody has any criticisms of him. But you're right. He's going to be a fit somewhere. A lot of people think that, he's as ready to play as really any of the 4 are right now. Mayfield maybe because he's older. Mayfield's 20. He'll be 24. For instance, if Mayfield came to the Browns and sat a year, he would be 25. Now, I'm not saying he's Brandon Wheaton old, but 25 years old. Darnold's 20 right now. So I think, though, that Rosen is a guy that a lot of people feel he'll fit with the Jets. That you don't hear the Giants talk about him at all at number 2. Beyond that, could he fit in Buffalo? I don't know. A lot of people think maybe Josh Allen fits in Buffalo. Weather, big arm, powerful arm. But you're right. Rosen is a guy that has not, figured into the Browns where people say, the Browns may go for him. Yet I heard they really enjoyed meeting him.
Now, it's interesting to hear your breakdown. And by the way, if you didn't get a chance to see it at 6, I hope people, if you didn't, I'm sorry. You broke down tonight Allen and Darnold, and then tomorrow it'll be Rosen and Mayfield. It's interesting to hear you describe Josh Rosen and some of the negatives. These guys weren't around in 2014, but it's some of the negatives of some of the things that people say about Johnny Manziel. And, comes from wealth, and it's sometimes says things that you just want to shake your head at. And at Mayfield, it's the swagger, and it's the belief that, hey, look, I'm the best, and I'll tell you I'm the best, and if you don't like it, too bad. I'm going to plant the flag and the Buckeye leaf, literally, and you don't like it, too bad. Stop me. But John Dorsey wasn't with the Cleveland Browns in 2014. Hugh Jackson wasn't here in 2014. None of that stuff, to me, would apply for these guys now. Everything is a fresh evaluation.
I would agree with that. Yeah. Arm strength is important to Dorsey. It was with Patrick Mahomes. I mean, if you put Patrick Mahomes into this draft, he's probably the best quarterback now with the Kansas City Chiefs and has supplanted Alex Smith to the point where they got rid of Alex Smith, and he is now going to be the starting quarterback. But this is a guy that was just arm eccentric. I mean, he could throw it everywhere, at every angle, too. I mean, he could do all kinds of throws, and he had a great arm. So you got to remember that. Dorsey liked it to the point that he traded up to get it. So that I think that, guys, here's the thing about Darnold that I like, okay? I think Mayfield right now is on a campaign to become the #1 pick in the draft. In other words, I think that's really important to him to be the #1 pick in the draft, okay? Darnold is more about, hey, listen, I want to go to a team, I want to help a team out, and I realize I still have a lot to learn. I think he's got the right temperament for what the Browns are looking for, and that is a guy that's going to learn for at least a year, maybe more, but at least 1 year, and I think Darnold recognizes I do need to learn a lot about the NFL game. And I don't think he has a problem with Cleveland. I don't think he has a problem with the Browns situation. And I don't think he has a problem whether he's 1 or 3 or 11 or 12.
Just, you know what, I'll go wherever I'm picked, whoever turns in the card, and I'll do what's needed. And that seems to be the kind of guy the Browns need.
Yeah, I think so. And I think that the other thing is the Browns were so detailed and well-attended in every public situation that Darnold was involved in. I mean, everybody was out at the pro workout out at Southern Cal. The owner was out there. Okay, I mean, the owner was with his parents. They went out to dinner the night before.
I put a pretty big price tag on that. You know, I mean, because you're trying again, and I don't know if Jimmy Haslam didn't sit with the parents of Josh Allen, Baker Mayfield, and Josh Rosen. We didn't see it in front of the cameras, but that said a lot to me as to what. I mean, the owner is looking at the guy on the field working out and saying, okay, he could be the future of my franchise. I really want to get to know him, and the best way to get to know him, besides talking to his coach, is talking to his parents.
Yeah, and you know, I think he's a hardworking kid. I don't get the whole, well, he's a Southern Cal quarterback or he's a beach boy or anything like that. That's going to be a problem with him. I don't get that impression. I think the other thing is he did win big games.
Yes, he did.
At Southern Cal.
I mean, and I'm glad in your piece tonight. I mean, you went back and looked at that Rose Bowl game against Penn State. I mean, was that a Rose Bowl?
Yeah, that's where the legend grew.
I mean, I remember watching that, and it's like, wow.
You could have drafted him #1 after that game.
Right. It was kind of like Cardale Jones after. Exactly. You could he could have been a first-round pick right then and there. So that's kind of at 1. And I wonder with 4, people have asked me today, is it possible that we could have a situation like with the Jets where somebody trades with the Browns before draft day for that 4th pick? I don't think so. I think John Dorsey's going to want to wait and see how chips fall, don't you, before he would make a deal?
I do. I think everybody is focused on I think a lot of people think, I mean, I think it's Darnold. I think, there, as Dino mentioned, there are some people that say, hey, it could be Josh Allen. Some people think it will be Josh Allen. But I think people think it's those two. Now, the Mayfield comment, there are people in the building in Berea that like Mayfield. There really are. But having said that, I think they're really focused, what are the Giants going to do?
Right.
Now, the most prevalent train of thought is this. If Darnold goes to the Browns, then the Giants are out of the quarterback thing, and they'll take Barkley at #2, which leaves the Browns then into a position where Bradley Chubb is still available to them. Buffalo is going to make a move somewhere. Okay, they have 2 first-round picks. They need a quarterback. They want to get up. Everybody knows they want to get up. And I think that, at that point then, they will be on the phone with the Browns saying, here's what we can do. And sometimes, Dino, it takes until the night of the draft and until maybe not necessarily when you're on the clock, but until maybe the Giants make their pick, the Jets make their pick, then it's go time.
And once you have that first pick, you've turned in the card. He's walked up. He's gotten his hug from Roger Goodell. The jersey's out there, and okay, let's say it's Darnold for argument's sake. You've got Sam Darnold. He's your guy. Okay, that's done. Now let's watch how everything else plays out, and before we go ahead and figure out what to do next. The more I've thought about this, I'm okay. I mean, I understand the virtues of trading down and getting maybe an extra first-round pick this year. But I'll tell you, Jimmy, the more I've thought about it, doesn't it make more sense to take a guy, let's say if Chubb's on the board, that has been graded by many people, not quite at Myles Garrett's level, but pretty close as an edge rusher, pretty close to where Garrett was a year ago. And then if you still want to get back into the first round, if there's a guy in the teens or in the 20s, well, that's why you have 3 second-round picks.
And Corey Coleman.
And you have Corey Coleman. And you've got other assets if you want to move back into the first round and maybe get that offensive tackle or something like that. As opposed to going from 4 to 12, and then you go into that situation where you're in that mid-first-round pick where the return on investment is likely not going to be as high.
Yeah. I think you are. It's a dangerous proposition. It's something that you can get lost at doing when you do it a lot, and the Browns have done it a lot, and it's been a complaint of mine that I think sometimes you get wrapped up in trading down, you forget to pick.
Yeah, exactly.
All of a sudden you go, wait a minute, who do we pick? Well, we didn't pick anybody.
Right.
I mean, but we got a lot of picks coming up. I think that Browns fans are tired of saying, but we got their first pick next year.
Right.
I think that at some point you got to make these picks, and you could never be better positioned than you are right now.
Right. I mean, this pick is because the Houston Texans, it would have been probably a pick in the teens had Deshaun Watson or further down had Deshaun Watson not gotten hurt, but he did get hurt. And Houston was bad.
Right.
So you know what? Reap the rewards.
Yep.
Reap the rewards. Get a player.
You can bet Houston wishes they had the pick.
Yeah, I'm sure they do. Ken Bernard says Chubb would make our defense crazy good. Get a quarterback at 4 or 33. Now I'm not going to say that. I think if Sam Darnold's your quarterback, take him. Don't wait till 4. Don't hope that the New York Giants or the New York Jets are going to let him go.
Yeah, that's a little bit risky because I think they do have a quarterback they like.
Yeah.
That quarterback, I don't think will be there at 4.
I don't either.
So you're at 1. There's a reason you're there. We've said that throughout the process. There's a reason you're there. You don't have your quarterback. I think they like their quarterback. I think that they're comfortable, and he's not going to be there at 4.
Right.
So you'd be gambling that guy would be there at 4. Or you just don't have a solid opinion on one of these quarterbacks, or at least a definitive opinion on that. And I don't think that's the case. I think they have put so much work into this. They have a definitive choice.
All right. Before we say goodbye to everybody here for tonight, Davey Nelson passed away. And, he's a guy that if you lived in Cleveland in the late 60s, if you were an Indians fan in the late 60s, you remember him as a player for a couple of years. But most of us remember him as a coach in those great mid-90s Indians teams that went to 2 World Series. And then after the 97 series, when Herb Score retired,
that's right.
Davey went from the first base coaching box up into the broadcast booth and joined that 3-man announcing radio team that they put together with Tom Hamilton and Mike Hegan. And you mentioned it tonight, and I agree. I learned a lot by sitting back and listening to Davey call, especially like when he'd be with Mike Hegan. And if Hamilton would get a couple innings for a break, you really get a lot of baseball knowledge for those 2 seasons that crew was together.
Yeah, I remember Davey, we were down in Winter Haven, and he had just made the move to leave the coaching box and go upstairs, and that was a big move.
Yeah.
Okay. He did it again in Milwaukee, didn't he, just before his death? And he's, I have to tell you, one of the nicest guys that you'd ever want to meet. He was on those great Indians teams in the mid-90s, I think he was a little bit of a buffer between Albert Bell and the coaching staff. because Davey could calm him down a little bit, and he could reach him, whereas, Buddy Bell and Mike Hargrove and those guys, I mean, Albert was a handful and did some things where you go, oh, Albert. But
what are you doing?
Davey Nelson could go, oh, Albert, and I don't know, he just had a fatherly way maybe of handling that. I think a lot of players really liked Davey.
Yes.
I mean, I did. And, I remember when he was going up into the broadcast booth, and we were sitting at Channel Lakes Park down in Winter Haven, and he was kind of asking, how do you think that's going to be? And he was, he was very nervous about going up there because Tom and Mike are so great together. But, Davey was family, and they loved him. And, was he the greatest play-by-play guy in the world? No, but he knew that. But, he was a great teller of stories, just like Mike Egan. Yep. Told great stories, and Tom was able to extract that.
That's what I wanted.
From them.
That's what I wanted. If it was Tom and Davey and Mike was over in the TV booth at the time with Jack Corrigan, I wanted stories.
Yeah.
Or, if it was Mike and Davey, I need Davey to kind of put it to me, okay, I've seen this situation before. This is what would happen, or this is what could happen. Yeah. Or just, sometimes when the Indians are at that time in 98 and 99, they're beating most of the teams by like 10-1.
Right.
You have time for stories. You have time to tell stories. And that's one of the things that makes radio baseball play-by-play great is you do have time to work in stories from the clubhouse. And that I always enjoyed that.
Yeah, very, very sad. He's just a wonderful man.
Yeah,
really a great
young guy. It's only 73.
He had a lung illness that persisted for a long period of time. I want to tell you, there's a hero of mine that passed away over the weekend. The great New England Patriots announcer, Gil Santos, 36 years calling the Patriots. And it would have been longer, but his radio station, WBZ in Boston, famous radio station, lost the contract rights. So Gil was working at WBZ. So he went, he did Penn State football, he did Boston College football. Just an incredible play-by-play broadcaster. And certainly a guy that I listened to. And this was at a time when the Patriots, believe it or not, didn't sell out and weren't on TV every week. So your only link to the game was you listened to Gil Santos, and Gino Cappelletti was his longtime color analyst with him. Just a great guy. I can remember when I got the Browns job, the Browns radio job, a Boston Globe sports writer called me and recognized that I was a Massachusetts guy and a Boston kid. And what was it like to be the voice of the Cleveland Browns? And I said, oh, it's an incredible honor. And he said, well, who did you kind of learn from? And I said, I learned definitely from Gil Santos. I listened to Gil Santos every weekend. And I'll tell you, Dino, like 4 days later, I had a handwritten letter from Gil Santos congratulating me. Meant everything
I was going to say, it had to mean the world to you.
It meant the world to me. I saw those WBZ letters on the envelope. It was just great. So it's very sad when these people pass because they have been such a part of our lives. And Davey Nelson was just a gentleman, just an incredible gentleman.
It's one of the reasons why I really do love and cherish NFL films, that you can go back and some of the great moments of NFL history. They play the radio calls. So in this case, for the Patriots, for those 3 Super Bowls in the 2000s, you hear Gil Santos call those Vinatieri field goals that were good, and just, or call the Tuck Rule game, and you just sit there, and I mean, that's how I got to really hear and experience Gil Santos, and it's like.
So you knew Gil. I mean, you knew of his
I knew of
right?
him, and it's like, wow, that the perfect tenor. I mean, just the call a game, and nothing was too up, nothing was too down. It just was smooth, professional, and you could definitely tell the rapport with the partner, which is something that you and I have talked now with you and Deke now at year 20. You either have it with your partner or you don't. Yeah. Gil had it with Cappelletti.
Oh yeah, they were they're just a great team. Gino retired. Gil stayed one more year, but his health had started to become an ongoing concern, and then he stayed one more season after Gino left, and then I think he thought they were going to go to another Super Bowl, which at that time every year he thought they were, and they lost in the AFC Championship game. And I remember listening to the game because they were playing the Baltimore Ravens, and the Ravens came on in the second half in Foxborough and beat them. And I went to the radio because I said this will be his last Patriots game, and he gave a beautiful goodbye speech. But the other thing about him was he used to do morning drive sports at WBZ Radio in the morning, and I would listen to him at 15 and 45 past the hours when I was a kid getting ready for school. And the other most important thing, he did no school announcements when there was bad weather.
Oh, did he really?
So I was always waiting for Gil. Come on, Gil.
Come on, Gil.
Give it to me.
Hook us up, baby.
Give me
No
the day
school.
off. Yeah.
That's an awesome story. And I know you still have the note from.
Absolutely.
Of course
yes,
you do.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I knew the answer to that. Of course you do. It's, those people don't take the time to write handwritten notes anymore, and that's amazing that he did that. All right. Again, this is just Monday. We've got 2 more of these shows tomorrow and Wednesday to get you ready for the NFL draft, folks. So hope you'll join us then. Jimmy will be back with you tonight, Channel 3 News at 11. Until then, for David Herviton and for the great Jim Donovan, I'm Dave DiNatale. Thank you for watching the Donovan Live Postgame Show here on WKYC's Facebook Live.